Back into prime time, because of the success of the Flintstones, Hanna-Barbera kept on making more prime-time animated series like Top Cat and The Jetsons, which is pretty much like the Flintstones, but set in the future. Another thing that makes it different from the Flintstones is that this show was based on the Blondie comic strips. They even got Penny Singleton, who did Blondie in the series, did the voice of Jane in this. Just think about the whole idea of how the future is going to be, what gadgets we'll be using, how a common future family would live, and actually show that on TV. It took the crew a total of 16 months. When the show was aired in 1962, it gained major popularity, but it was short-lived with only 24 episodes aired on TV. The reason for this is that it was next to two big shows released at the time, Dennis the Menace and Disney's Wonderful World of Color. But like I said, the show was still popular. After its cancellation, the Jetsons were moved to Saturday mornings, but only showed the 24 episodes they made. For 2 decades! Wouldn't you just go insane if you always see the same 24 episodes every Saturday morning for 20 years? Anyways, during the 80s, Bill and Joe are starting to be more aware about the Jetsons still being popular with just 24 episodes after all these years. So in 1984, they decided to reboot the show and make more new episodes, which now lasted longer and got more episodes than during the 60s. In 1987, Bill and Joe decided to make a TV movie that's so special, so mind-blowing that Hanna-Barbera fans jizzed their pants when they first heard about it. It's The Jetsons Meets the Flintstones. Then, in 1990, they released a feature film simply called Jetsons the Movie. This film was the last time that George O. Hanlon, the voice of, well, George Jetson, Penny Singleton, and Mel Blanc, the voice of Mr. Spacely, because during production, George and Mel passed away, and Penny, well, stopped show business, I guess. Now, I want to take this time to say that even though that the gadgets, the robots and stuff are sometimes weird and wacky, the technology in the Jetsons is slowly becoming our technology. Think about it. There are people actually making serving robots like Rosie, and look at this special phone here. Today, that's called Skype, or if you want to go mobile, the iPhone. And there will be more and more gadgets invented in real life that we've seen in the Jetsons. We're actually closer than we think to actually own a hover car, people. Another primetime series that they released during the 60s was Jonny Quest. It's about the adventures of an 11-year-old boy named Jonny Quest, who is with his dad, Dr. Benton Quest, his bodyguard Race, his best friend Hudgie, and his dog Bandit. Joe Barbera got inspired to do an action-adventure show from watching Dr. No, the first James Bond movie. When the planning all began, they decided to make a cartoon show based on the radio show Jack Armstrong, All-American Boy. But then when comic book artist Doug Wildey came in, he suggested to screw Jack and make something up instead. When working on the title for the original show, they thought up stuff like the saga of Chip Ballou, oh by the way, that was supposed to be Johnny's name, and Quest File 037, or 037. Screw it. Anyways, after those suggestions, they finally settled on Jonny Quest. The villain of the show, Dr. Zinn, was based on Fu Manchu from the Sam Romer books and Professor James Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes' arch-enemy. When it aired on September 18th, 1964, it got really good ratings and great reviews from the critics, but it only ran for one season. Now the reason is not because Bill and Joe didn't feel like doing more, no. It's because the show was over-budgeted, which makes the ABC executives pretty uncomfortable. After the cancellation, the show ended up pretty much exactly like the Jetsons. It was moved to Saturday mornings, and they would show the reruns for a few decades, and during that time, the show's popularity grew bigger and bigger. Been there, done that. However, there's a little difference between the Jetsons and Jonny Quest. It's that during the time when it was on Saturday mornings, There were a lot of parents and groups who kept nagging and nagging about the guns, the killing, and all that crap. So in 1972, they re-released the episodes, but now they're edited, which makes the show sometimes confusing. Then, in 1986, they released the New Adventures of Jonny Quest as part of the Funtastic World of Hanna-Barbera TV block. Also, Comico was making some Jonny Quest comic books which were written by William Mentzer Loebs. During the 90s, there were some made-for-TV movies that were released, like Johnny's Golden Quest and Jonny Quest vs. the Cyber Insects. And there was a TV show called The Real Adventures of Jonny Quest that brought a new look to the characters. Also, there was supposed to be a live-action movie to be made at that time, which would have been directed by Richard Donner, but the date of the filming got pushed further and further up to scrapping the movie. But apparently, there's gonna actually be one released in 2012. During the mid-60s, they were making even more action-adventure cartoons, like Space Ghost, Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, the Fantastic Four, and the Herculoids, while other cartoons like the Adam Ant Show and the Secret Squirrel Show kept the tradition of the classic Hanna-Barbera shows. One other show, though, that was more different than any other show they made was the Banana Splits Adventure Hour. It's a show that has live-action segments of a rock band of mascots and Danger Island, which is kinda like Jonny Quest, and was directed by Richard Donner, with a mix of other cartoons like The Three Musketeers and Arabian Nights. It all began in 1967, where Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera talked to the Kroft brothers if they can design some costumes for the show. Originally, the show was supposed to be called The Banana Bunch, but there was already a children's book that was named that, so they had to change it to The Banana Splits. This name change had no consequence at all, except the sponsors, Kellogg's, had over 1.25 million cereal boxes that refers the show as the Banana Bunch, so they had to trash all those boxes and redo the whole thing. During the first season, they would film the live-action segments with Okay. Yeah, they filmed them in the amusement park Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, Texas. But then in the second season, they changed their location to another amusement park, Coney Island in Cincinnati, Ohio. However, there's a popular belief that it was filmed in another amusement park in Cincinnati, Kings Island. But it actually was Coney Island. Why amusement parks? So we can see them go on the rides in every episode. Yeah, this had no point in the show. When the second season came along, there were a few changes going on in this show. The cartoon segment, The Three Musketeers, were replaced with reruns of the Hillbilly Bears, which used to appear on the Adam Ant Show. Throughout the whole time it was on, it only released 31 episodes in 2 years. The Kroft brothers got recognized by NBC for the costume design, and they released a series that they personally made called HR Pufnstuf. After it was done, the show was re-edited so it could be about a half-hour long, because the original show was about 45 minutes long. In the re-edits, which are called the Banana Splits and Friends show, they mixed in other Hanna-Barbera shows that has no relations with the Banana Splits. There was Adam Ant, Secret Squirrel, The Adventures of Gulliver, and The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. In the 2000s, they tried to revive the show with some internet cartoons and a TV show that aired on Cartoon Network in 2008. The title song, the Tra-La-La Song, actually became quite a legendary song. It was at number 96 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1969. It's the first song in the 1995 tribute album, Saturday Morning's Cartoons Greatest Hits, and there are several different versions of it by Cal Tjander and the Dickies, in which that version was used in Kick-Ass and was at number 7 on the UK single charts in 1979. A week after the release of the Banana Splits Adventure Hour, Hanna-Barbera aired The Wacky Races. It's a show where 11 weird people who drive their own cars in a race. In a way, It's like a sports show because they always say in which place the characters are in at the end. The show wasn't supposed to be made just for entertainment. It was originally a live-action quiz show, and Hanna-Barbera would team up with Heater Quigley Productions, the studio behind Hollywood Squares. The race would still be in cartoon, but the live-action part is that contestants would actually bet on who would win. But eventually, the game show idea was scrapped. But Merrill Heater and Bob Quigley are still considered producers with Bill and Joe. During the time it was on, it only had 17 with their own popular characters, like Yogi's Space Race and Yogi's Treasure Hunt. In the show Laugh Olympics, where all the Hanna-Barbera characters compete against each other, there's one guy who looks like Dick Dastardly called the Dread Baron, and his sidekick, Mumbly, who pretty much is Muttley. This causes so much confusion that some people thought that they were Dick and Muttley, especially when the Baron and Mumbly were on a Yogi Bear TV movie. Even Mumbly made his own spin-off. The Wacky Races also spawned some video games on several consoles, like the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, the PlayStation 2, the Nintendo DS, and the Wii. The most notable one, though, is the one on the Sega Dreamcast, because it got some pretty good ratings with an average of 8 out of 10 or something like that. During the Goodwood Festival of Speed in the UK, they made 8 life-size replicas of the cars from Wacky Races. And they actually work! Wouldn't it just be awesome if you're cruising down the streets in the Mean Machine? If you're bringing your friends in it, one of them must know how to do the Muttley laugh.